Welcome to Thursdays at the Museum. I'm Ian Rapnicki. I'm a Community Engagement Manager with the DIA. And as always, I'd like to start by thanking the residents of Macomb, Oakland, and Wayne counties for your generous millage support. That support provides free general admission for Tri-County residents, free school field trips, community programs, and specialty programming for adults 55 and older, which includes free bus transportation to the museum. Today, we'll be visiting the studio of Heather Miller, the art director and illustrator behind H. Miller Inc. She earned her BFA from the College for Creative Studies and is currently a full-time illustrator based in Detroit. If you'd like to ask a question during the program today, you can do so by making sure you're signed into YouTube and leaving a comment there. Or if you're watching on Facebook, you can leave a public comment there as well. And your questions will be fielded by today's host, DIA Studio Coordinator Zach Freeling. So let's get to it. Let's visit with Heather and Zach. Hi.
Hey, Ian. Thank you. And hi, Heather. How's it going?
Hi, Zach.
Thanks for joining us today. It's good to have you here. Excited to chat. Full disclosure for the audience, I also graduated from College for Creative Studies in Illustration, which is how Heather and I know each other. And I'm excited to talk to Heather a bit today, share some of your work and your process, and talk about what you've been up to for the past little bit of time since graduating, since furthering your career.
Yeah.
So thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is truly a dream.
Oh, thank you. Thanks everyone for joining us on YouTube and Facebook. So Heather, you made this great presentation today. So just to kind of give everyone a bit of a heads up, let's break down what we're going to be talking about today. You kind of have these nice five chapters, as it were, set up.
Right. Yeah, in proper art director fashion, of course, I made a presentation deck. So yeah, I'm excited to also just converse, have a conversation about things, and yeah, looking forward to people dropping questions in the chat as well. First, we'll be talking about how I got into illustration and my background and how it's going today, kind of my path, and yeah, what it's like being a full-time illustrator. And I also want to talk about how you can start too. So maybe some of the viewers are also creatives, or maybe you're people that also like to do art or you like to draw. So I'm going to share some of the resources that have helped me in the past, and I hope you also find them helpful and encouraging. I'll also be doing a demo of how I start projects in my sketchbook, and yeah, the Q&A as well.
Cool. And I have, speaking of the demo, I've got a bunch of art supplies here as well, a smattering of colored pencils and markers and crayons and paper. So if anyone at home wants to join for the demo or just doodle along as we go, feel free, of course.
Yeah, and really grab whatever you have. You can use copy paper, cardboard, just a big pen. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. I'm honestly using some colored pencils and Crayola markers. So yeah, just have fun, draw along with me, or, just watch too. That's cool.
Cool.
All right. You want to get into it?
Sure. Yeah.
All right.
How it started. Let's talk about
how it started. Here we go. So I want to start first by talking about that this presentation is also about creative block, because the work that I've been making the last couple of years is really in a response to a long block that I had. And yeah, I just kind of wanted to talk about that part of the process and how I worked through that and what got me drawing again. Let's get into my background. So I was really fortunate. I had a very supportive family and encouraging teachers when I was growing up. I was definitely the kid that was always drawing. Art really made sense to me. And, other subjects I, wasn't as great as those. And art was just fun and I liked doing it. And it was my 8th grade teacher that told me about art school. And I thought that sounded awesome. I was very excited to learn that there was a place that I could go to that I could just focus on art. So at the age of about 13, I decided, I'm going to go to art school. And 5 years later, I enrolled at the College for Creative Studies and I graduated from there from the illustration department. I also got a double major in art education as well. Yeah, so that part pretty linear. When I got out of school, that's where it gets not as linear. So I had this degree. I had, 2 degrees for art ed, illustration. What field did I end up going into? Well, that actually ended up being advertising, where I worked as an art director. So I was working in different agencies throughout Detroit, and this was a completely new field to me. It was something that I had to learn as I went, and it was really hard because I wanted to do a good job at it, of course. And I really focused on it, and I put a lot into learning how to be an art director and just kind of start my career, what that meant. And as I got into it more, unfortunately, what ended up happening was I stopped making personal art, and I stopped drawing entirely. I was just focused on other aspects, and art direction was awesome. It taught me a whole different skill set that I still incorporate, I still use. But it just felt a little disconnected from what I was doing on a regular basis to what I wanted to be doing. And the longer that I wasn't illustrating, the harder it became for me to start illustrating again. It just got super scary, and yeah, the blank page just kept getting more and more overwhelming. So it was easier for me to kind of just ignore it and not even try. Yeah, but then that kind of left me feeling kind of sad in the end, as I went on in my career. So I knew I needed to make a really big shift. And that shift actually ended up being moving into a van to travel with my partner. And oddly enough, that very minimal lifestyle and that small space living, it freed up space in my head to just kind of start making again, or even entertain the idea of creating again.
Do you think that was partly because of a change of scenery, or because you were away from the creative director jobs, or was it just a total reset, or kind of?
Yeah, it was, and I know that this would be different for everyone. I'm sure that there are other people who might feel stuck or maybe are also in a creative block. And yeah, for me, I really needed that hard reset. And I just needed I needed that freedom to kind of decide what direction I wanted to take my life in, and just what my values were, what made me happy, what lit me up. And I know that's probably a really drastic move, but that's what worked for me.
Sure.
Yeah. And also, I'm very inspired by traveling. It's definitely a passion of mine. So yeah, being on the road and just kind of experiencing different places on a daily basis, that kind of like got my brain firing again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just like in a different way. I mean, because obviously, like in advertising, you're still doing a lot of creative things and you're problem solving, and there are always challenges to work through and kind of figure out. And that part is really cool. I like the problem solving aspect of it. It was just, yeah, I wasn't able to kind of foster and nurture a creative practice, you know, as an illustrator on top of that. So yeah, taking that pause to kind of figure things out was really helpful for me. So one of the exercises that actually got me drawing again was just drawing what was in front of me. And at that time, it happened to be a shrimp pack of ramen. And Zach, I'm sure you can relate to this. I know for illustrators, you know, finding your style and your voice is, you know, this like coveted thing that, and you're always pursuing that. I don't think I'll ever feel like, oh, I've arrived. Like, this is my style. This is my voice. Like, I think it's evolving. But after coming out of a really long block, you know, just sitting down and saying, okay, I'm going to make a perfect illustration that captures my style and my voice, and everyone's going to know that I drew this and it's going to be the best thing ever. It like that's so much pressure, and but that's how my brain was also working at that time.
Right. Especially I imagine when you're working, you know, when you're working in the business where you always were working towards something that was going to be consumed by the public one way or another and be presented and, you know, represent another company, another brand.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I just, you know, I wanted everything I need to be exceptional. And this exercise of just taking something that I enjoyed eating and drawing it was this very like low pressure way for me to just get drawing again.
For sure.
And like doing these exercises, it led to my first series that I created, and it was these non-perishable packaged foods that I started calling my pantry heroes, because I drew them when I was in quarantine and emotionally eating a lot, and these were kind of my comfort foods that I kept reaching for. And you know, like that was kind of the exercise and the concept behind them. And yeah, it just kind of like helped me work out how to draw again. And I think that was like a valuable lesson for me to start working towards, that I can just draw just to draw because it's fun and I want to do this.
For sure.
Another really big thing that helped me get through my huge block was just online learning. I started really getting involved in illustration communities that I found through courses, classes, just social platforms in general. And yeah, starting to kind of foster that community also helped give me inspiration and just kind of like get my feet wet with just making illustration again. I also found that the internet changed a lot since like we were in school. And just like being in an academic setting at CCS, and I mean, there are so many other like learning platforms that are just a little more accessible, like depending on how much time you have or where you are. Again, this was also during the pandemic, so I did have more time to devote to just taking some online courses just about anything that I was interested in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I don't know if you can tell, but I am a type A personality as well. So like I kind of cobbled this curriculum together for myself, and I do well with structure. So having that structure for myself also really helped prompt me to keep making things, keep exploring my style, keep exploring how I like to create.
Yeah, having some accountability and deadlines and things, but not in a too stressful of a way.
Yeah. Again, trying to keep it, kind of trying to be like soft on myself and, learn and absorb, but also be patient as well. Which is something, I struggle with. I, of course, still struggle with perfectionism, and I want to be good at everything immediately. But yeah, that's just kind of not how it works. So, yeah, I just try to keep showing up every day, keep practicing.
Mm-hmm.
How it's going. Yeah, so I think this is a good segue into how I create, why I create. I really love using analog art supplies. So like the tactile nature of using pen, paper, colored pencil, sketchbooks. I really like working that way first, and I might manipulate it a little bit in Photoshop later, but I like to start pretty much analog, because I found where I'm most playful, and I found that that's a concept that I definitely like explore within my illustration, is just playing the act of it, because that's what is fun for me. And like it again, it relieves the pressure. It also, it it doesn't have to look perfect. And when I'm working traditionally, I'll make mistakes. I'll smudge the paper, might crinkle, or I might smudge the ink, or maybe this color doesn't look that great, or I drew this hand really wonky. But instead of erasing it, I try and work with those mistakes, and then the mistakes become part of the creative process.
Right.
I also really like layering materials. That's like another thing that we'll look at that in the demo as well. I think that that's really fun, just playing around with how, colored pencil works on top of markers. And
yeah, I've noticed that with a lot of your pieces, which we'll look at a few more here very soon. But a lot of interesting layering that clearly took a lot of experimenting and seeing what works and how different colors and materials will respond to each other, especially when you're dealing with the variety of paint markers and waxy crayons and oil pastels and charcoal and lead.
And it comes out messy sometimes. It doesn't always look great, but it is very fun to do that. And I can't control Z it. I just have to figure out a different way to do it. So here's some of the pieces that I've done in my sketchbook. These are a combination of paint pens and colored pencil, crayon, highlighters. I really like whatever I kind of feel like using and playing with.
I love your the way you photograph your work too. That's also very art directory, I feel like. But like these ones on the sides here, how you've got the materials there and the good color background that matches, and it's all very.
I try to do that too, to kind of show people. I mean, I don't take the time to film tutorials like for every piece, but I'm hoping that, maybe if I include some of the materials that kind of, if someone wants to try layering it this way or give something a shot, that kind of gives them a little bit of a starting point to kind of see how I got there.
And it makes it look approachable and accomplishable, like especially this one on the right where you've got your, on the top page, I love your little like palette study and sketches and things, and really kind of showing some process behind it rather than just, a closely cropped square where, sometimes I'll see from illustrators and, you'll think, is this a digital piece? Is this a print? Is this a painting? How do they accomplish this? So you really kind of see the scale and the size, and it kind of really makes it, you can really feel that it was done, by a human's hand.
Yeah, it's hard to tell the difference, honestly, with a lot of different creatives that I follow. Digital art is beautiful and amazing, and there are so many textures, and you can get, you can get that analog effect if you know how to do it.
Right.
I haven't taken the time to learn how to do it, but some people have, and it looks amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just, this part of the process, keeping at least, 50%, 60% of it analog in my sketchbook on paper. The rest can be done, like, especially for a client project, it's, of course, it has to be digitized and resized and, packaged properly. But yeah, I like that I kind of have this part to just sort of like play around. Yeah, some more pieces.
Yeah, these are great.
Heading into inspiration. Yeah, so as I mentioned, just like working with tactile materials is really inspiring to me. I get a lot of joy from playing around with that. I also get a lot of inspiration from hiking, nature. I'm really nostalgic and sentimental, so sometimes that'll creep into my work. And just color and shapes. I love bright colors. I really don't use like a lot of dark tones in my work. I'm really drawn to those bright, poppy, all of the colors. And then in my client work, I like working with really playful, fun brands. I love a good brief. Again, type A personality. And I like using my art for a good cause when I can illustrate for something that could be helpful. That's always a really nice feeling. And I like that art can also be used as an act of service. So kind of like offering that skill set when I can is really nice. And I just like working with nice people as well. So, of course, who wouldn't?
Yeah.
More art, more pieces.
So are these three here, are these personal pieces, or were these for projects or part of a series? Can you talk a little bit about these ones?
Yeah, so the hiking icons on the left, I think it's everyone's left, I'm hoping. These were inspired by a article about different hiking tips. These are all things that I have sort of learned from mistakes that I've made when going on a hike. And I kind of made these icons to sort of depict them. So yeah, like one is to break in your boots before you go hiking, wear sunscreen, wear a sun hat, bring sunglasses, check the weather, and good socks. Good socks are so clutch for a good hike. And always take an analog map. Don't rely on your phone because you might not get service, or it might die, or you might lose it. So it's nice to have the comfort of an actual physical map.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the center piece is actually a idea for a puzzle concept. I created a bunch of little icons for the night sky, the constellations that you see in the winter sky, because you see different constellations in the 4 different seasons. So I was focusing on the winter sky and what ones that you see during the winter. So you see Orion there. And then, the last one is to just emphasize how amazing Elizabeth Catlett is. This was actually a drawing prompt that I did through Make Art That Sells. They offered a free program called Redrawing Black History, and it's still up on their site, and it had some really great prompts in it, and you got to learn about the history of a lot of amazing Black creatives. And this was one of the pieces I wanted to include because she was so great.
Yeah, Elizabeth Catlett's great. We definitely have a few of her works on display at the museum.
Yeah, another piece. This was another personal piece. This was, I always go to the Commons to do my laundry. And so I just kind of like depicted that because I think I don't know why I love doing laundry at different laundromats. I don't know. It's just fun. I think it's an interesting place and you get to see like a lot of different characters there. I think like as an illustrator, it's a nice place to kind of people watch and like meet different people.
Yeah, I definitely have some laundromat sketches in my sketchbook as well.
Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah. I make art because it's super fun. And I've realized too that ever since I was little, just illustrating is also a way for me to relate to people. And I like, connecting visuals with a message and sharing that with people in relatable ways. And it's how I observe the world and interpret it. And that's why I make it. It's fun.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's a good takeaway from this too, is we're talking a bit about the business side of things and freelance and going to school and taking classes. But I think that's kind of hopefully the main takeaway from not just this week's program, but most of these programs we do and a lot of what we do at the museum outside of this in our studio department is that it should be fun. And it's not always about the final product. It can also just be about the process and the time you make spending it, and setting aside that time for yourself to work creatively and give your brain something different to do and focus on for a little bit, even if it's just sketching or doodling or scribbling, whatever, sculpting.
And just kind of getting in the habit of that art practice can be, I don't know, it can be kind of scary and daunting, like, oh, I have to do this like every day. But it's something that I've realized I really enjoy. And the more that you do it, the easier it is. Right. And the longer you're away from it, as I've found, the scarier it becomes. So just keep at it. And I wanted to share some resources with our viewers today as well. All of these that I'm sharing are, regardless of skill level, try them out. I'm sharing different books that I've found helpful, some podcasts, and just where I get some of my art supplies in general. Again, I think kind of a common misconception is that you need like really fancy art supplies to make things. And I mean, you really don't. I mean, just, use what you have and just have fun with it.
That was an interesting challenge for us over the, and Amanda is putting a lot of links in the chat here for us to check out.
Thank you,
Great.
Amanda.
But yeah, that was an interesting challenge over, you know, when the museum was shut down and we were doing classes online, you know, through Zoom or whatever with, you know, our Michigan Alzheimer's group, with the VA hospital, with local schools, with all sorts of groups. You know, normally would have them come to the museum and we give them clay and do printmaking and painting. And so we had to kind of think of what can we do without the access to this great space and materials. And it was really fun seeing what people came up with, you know, getting junk mail out of the recycling bin, or making sculptures out of Amazon boxes, or, you know, whatever they had around, whether it's just a pencil and copy paper, like you said, or whether it's, you know, some crayons they had lying around and they forgot about. It's just really been fun to see what you can use with what you just have lying around the house. Using nature, going out and grabbing sticks and leaves and, you know, making a sculpture that way. You know, there's so much you can do.
Yeah, it's also a way to just kind of make it more accessible for yourself. I think that's another reason why I think I had such a block as well, because when I was in college, I loved working with acrylic paint. And I was doing a lot of wood blocks too, so I would cut into like these blocks of wood and then I'd paint over them, and that, like, you know, I got some really cool results from it and I enjoyed doing it. But when I got into, you know, kind of more of a career path, and, you know, where I wasn't going to art school every day, where I had, you know, solid chunks of time to dedicate to it, that art practice kind of seemed unobtainable. You know, because I didn't have a printmaking studio and I didn't want to get all my paints out and make a huge mess in my, you know, the living room of my studio apartment. So now, you know, I've just kind of learned too, like, what materials work for me. Like, we'll go into like the material demo, but I found these paint pens that I love using because it lets me work with paint, but they're also really accessible, and I can just kind of buy the colors that I want and carry them with me anywhere. And, you know, now I can paint and I can draw, you know, without setting up brushes and my water. And
for sure. I also had a similar experience. I think, you know, I also did a lot of printmaking and, you know, encaustic painting and oil painting and all these things that then all of a sudden I'm, you know, living in a small apartment, and, you know, I found myself doing a lot of collaging, a lot of watercolor, a lot of drawing, things that you can really do anywhere.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's interesting, like, how the materials that you use also kind of evolves with you through, like, you know, it's still like your art and your style. It doesn't, like, the materials don't dictate how, like, you know, how you draw. So yeah. All right. And then I think Amanda has shared all of these links in the chat, right?
If there's one link on here you would suggest people to check out, what would be the number one if they have time for one link after this to click on?
Okay. Honestly, I love Haley Munn's book, Draw Like a Child. It's so great. And it's just, it's honestly like a sketchbook, and it's filled with really low pressure drawing prompts. And it's just super fun to see the results that you make in it. It's like, it's on my bookshelf. Of course, it's like out of reach right now. Otherwise I would, here, let me like back up and grab it. Yeah. This book is awesome. Great for adults, great for kids. And yeah, it's really good for any, again, like any skill level. It's super fun.
Yeah, I love those books. I've seen a few others like that are just, you know, really, really thoughtful and interesting prompts that make it really low stakes in a way, but really fun.
Yeah.
It can be great. Yeah, great for adults, great for, you know, parents or grandparents to do with kids. Great for
Yeah.
anyone.
And it's nice, like it's a nice way to get away from a screen too, you know, because you can just kind of draw on this, take it with you, you know, go to a coffee shop or a park or something and just kind of play around in it.
Yeah. Great. Draw like a child, Haley Munn.
Yeah. Draw like a child. It's really good.
So
right.
now we've got a materials demo. We're going to switch cameras here. Is there anything you want to share before you switch to the other screen, or I guess that can just be done while that's
Yeah,
going
I'll probably like talk through it. I will say that kind of the prompt that I'm using for this demo is to draw what's in front of me. So, you know, again, this was the exercise that got me drawing after my really long block. So I just grabbed a couple of things that I had on one of my shelves that I found interesting that I thought, you know, would be kind of fun to play around with.
Cool.
So I will.
So if folks at home want to draw what they have in front of them or what they see on the screen, what Heather has in front of her.
Yeah.
Just kind of chat through it. That's great.
Yeah. So these are the materials that I'm going to be using, and I'll show you over here. So this is something that I kind of do like because I work in mixed media and kind of like a lot of different color palettes. I just kind of take whatever I'm working with and just kind of make these little swatches to see how materials react on top of each other. And that kind of helps me if I, you know, need to figure out, oh, I want a darker color or a lighter color, and or, you know, maybe I'm looking for something like this kind of a tone over here. I kind of know how to make that. Yeah, and then I sort of grabbed a couple rocks that I found on some hikes. I grabbed this little car that a friend gave me, the van, of course, van life,
Right.
and this nice little like pine cone.
Nice.
So I kind of use these as more of inspiration when I'm drawing. So I don't necessarily like draw them super representationally. So I might just start, I'm just going to start with this van. And I guess I'll also say that I often start working with markers first because they're a really nice way to like block in color. And then I'll often add details either with like colored pencil or these like paint markers on top. So yeah, just kind of getting inspiration from these things. And, you know, again, a lot of my inspiration comes like as I'm drawing it. You know, I'll start to think about, oh, you know, it might be nice to like put a pattern on this van, or where is this van? Is it in the clouds? Is it driving down the road?
That's a good prompt. We always use, you know, just what more could be in this picture? What more can you add to tell the story to make it something complete? And that could be, that it's in the hills, that we know what's the weather like, what are the plants like, who's there. I am not drawing the van. I was going to, I'm drawing my little water glass here that I had next to me.
Nice.
But I also have those is it Posca? Is that how it's pronounced?
Those the Posca markers.
Those are really fun. Yeah.
I love them so much.
That's definitely something I discovered, I think, during early quarantine as well.
Yeah. And there's
really interesting.
There's other brands too. Like I can't think of it right now, but if you're like looking for other colors and they don't have them.
Yeah, they're especially really great. I found this seems like a good use of them for layering or going on top of other things. But I found they're also really great for like they look so good on like cardboard or wood even.
Yeah, they do.
So flat and opaque and just really nice. Really nice.
Yeah, I have no idea when they. I mean, for all I know, they've existed forever, and I'm
Mhm.
just like, you know, new to this party, I guess.
Mhm. They were founded in 1983.
Oh, okay.
I just looked up. I
Yeah.
didn't know
you
that.
you didn't just like have that info just readily available.
Yeah, they've got a whole site on their website for history and values.
Oh, nice. Oh, are there antique Posca pens?
Probably it looks. I mean, it looks like there's some. Oh, I don't think not values like monetary, like
Oh,
values.
okay. Oh,
Like
I get it now.
these values.
I'm getting it now.
Great. But there are some examples of some very old ones and some cool stuff they've got. It's a Japanese company,
Yeah, I thought it was like extinct colors or something.
like Beanie Babies.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Don't get me started on Beanie Babies. I really thought I was going to be able to retire off of those.
So it looks like you're mostly using just regular old Crayola markers
Yeah.
and some like Prismacolor pencils.
Yep. So yeah,
Is that what you want a highlighter?
these are Crayola markers. I'm pretty sure I bought these at like Walmart in a pack. But I really like them for blocking in my base colors. And yes, this is a highlighter that I am using. And then I also use these Prismacolor Premier pencils.
Nice.
Yeah, so I kind of just like blocked in the color now, and then this is normally when I'll kind of go in and start like drawing more detail. And I'm sure you can see that, you know, I'm not getting super representational with this. It really is more, I'm using it as inspiration.
Mm-hmm. Which is a cool way to go about it. Yeah, almost just using it more as, which that can be another like mindset to get into too, of like, okay, I'm not trying to draw that exact tree I'm looking at. I'm maybe drawing the feeling of it or the spirit of it, or, you know, just using it as inspiration to
Yeah.
my own thing. You know, if you could just take a picture of the tree if you wanted. It's nice to add your own.
Yeah. And a lot of times when I've kind of been talking with people and, you know, they'll, you know, oftentimes it comes up like, oh, what do you do for a living? And I tell them like, oh, I'm an illustrator. And a lot of times the reaction is, oh, like I can't draw at all.
Yeah.
And I really feel like everyone can draw. I think that a lot of times people like define drawing as drawing something super photorealistic or representational. Right. And it's so interesting to me when you know, people just give it a try and they just draw it like the way that they think is right and like whatever their skill level is at. And it always, I feel like the effects are always like so cool. Like, not to knock representational drawing, obviously that is like a very, I mean, a whole different skill set and very difficult to do and requires a ton of work to do it.
Right, for sure. And there's a whole wide spectrum, and that's one thing that's so nice about illustration. You know, you can look at someone like, say, I don't know, Drew Struzan, who painted the Star Wars and every other movie poster that we're doing. People like that can do amazing photorealistic, emotional, vibrant, creative work. But also, thinking of illustrators, some of the ones that pop into people's minds might be, people like Eric Carle or Ed Emberley, people that were able to accomplish, quite a bit, doing pretty, in a good way, childlike types of.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Eric Carle. I love Eric Carle, of course, just like the the shapes and the textures and the colors.
And that's the illustrator of The Very Hungry Caterpillar and many other books.
Yes.
And he's got there's a whole Eric Carle museum in the Northeast. Yeah. This is looking cool. I like, it's almost got like a 3D look, the blues and pinks there.
Yeah, it's just, and like I promise you I did not like practice this before. I mean, not that it like looks amazing by any means, but it's just kind of fun. I'm honestly just like I'm trusting my hands right now and just kind of like letting my mind wander like while we're talking and doing this, and
which is a fun way to do it. I could easily see, and this is a good example too of like an illustration that can, you're not spending weeks and weeks on this. It's been 5 minutes or so. You could do this over coffee in the morning, or I was trying to think like, where is there 5 minutes in my day that I could be spending drawing instead? Like maybe I don't need to like be on Twitter or something. I could be, drawing some rocks I found up north or something more valuable.
Yeah. And like getting, again, going back to like just taking that pressure off of yourself to, think that drawing needs to be this like very, there's only one way to do it. You have to like set everything up. It has to be like with these materials, you have to have this solid block of time, and it needs to be this like really profound concept.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, if people are, if you are doodling at home, either right now, or if you're taking in these lessons and want to draw later, we would love to see what you do, and we'll have Heather's social media stuff and links and things popping up here in a second, or you can send it to our DIA social media, tag us on Instagram.
Yeah, I'd love to see if people are drawing along. That would be really fun to see what other people are making, especially if someone drew the van too.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about this later, right before the end here. But I just wanted to mention it in case anyone logs off before we get to it. But you're going to be joining us. We're resuming our in-person artist demonstrations at the museum. We've been doing those for a few months now, and those are generally the third weekend of the month. And you're going to be joining us for one of those in August.
Yes, I'm so excited about that. Yeah, to just draw with everyone all day and hang out.
And that's part of our studio programming. It's in the art making studio at the museum, and there's free drop-in style programs from noon to 4. All ages welcome, all materials provided. We'll have a bunch of different art supplies and prompts and some things to draw, and they've been really nice the past few months we've done them. We had Judy Bowman last month, and we've had the printmakers from Signal Return doing some letterpress printing.
Oh, that's cool.
We had Melissa Deloff did some screen printing, and they've just been really nice. Just to and Kayla Powers did some fibers-based fabric dyeing and weaving. They've just been really nice folks coming in and just really spending some time looking at art and talking about art and seeing how things are made and getting a chance to talk to some local artists. It's been really nice.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun. We'll talk more about that a bit at the end. But yeah, August 20th and 21st, I believe, is the date. We'll promote that on the website and the email and all the usual places. But yeah, if anyone watching this wants to come by, that would be great. This is looking really cool. I love the red and purple grass on top of the pink at the bottom there.
Oh, thanks, Zach. I think I'm gonna switch screens now. I think like I could definitely keep going with this, but I just wanted to show, how I kind of use little things like this to just kind of just as sort of a practice, just as sort of an exercise.
Yeah, that looks great. I like that you added the vroom vroom. I like that you've got kind of there's still, you've got it broken. The composition is still broken down. You've got the background. You've got, yeah, that's great. I just drew my little water glass.
Oh, cool.
That's sitting on, this is the glass, and it's sitting on top of a little, this little macrame thing a friend made, Alicia.
Oh, that's nice. Oh, that's fun. Macrame.
Yeah. Interesting texture to try and draw. But yeah, it was nice to just doodle a little water glass, which of course is something that's like, this will be easy to draw. And then looking at it for 1 second, it was like, oh, there's a lot going on here.
Yeah. I've found that I also I'll just draw inanimate objects and then I'll put faces on them too. That's like another, just put a face on it, turn it into a character. And then all of a sudden this rock becomes this fun little creature.
Yeah. Little character.
Yeah.
Great.
I think, I think we're at the Q&A now. If anyone dropped anything in.
Yeah, we've got a few moments here if anyone has any questions. We've mostly just had comments. We've had people saying great work. We've had people saying that looks rad, so cool, so awesome, excellent presentation as well. Lots of smiley face emoticons with the open mouth, which is
I love emojis. Keep them coming.
We did have a question from Ian, actually. Coming from advertising, do you often include text in your illustrations? That's a good question.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's something I've actually been incorporating a little bit more in my work recently. I was a little bit intimidated by hand lettering because, again, I had this preconceived idea that hand lettering was this gorgeous calligraphy, which I do not do at all. And there are many people that are amazing at that. And yeah, I'm kind of figuring out what my style of hand lettering is, which of course it's blocky, it's childlike. And that has been a really fun thing to start experimenting with, as well as, adding it in.
Do you find that coming from the auto industry that do you catch yourself today still drawing cars and vehicles, or was that just kind of a fluke today?
Yeah, that was actually, I feel like that was a fluke, but I think I picked the van because I was like, I'm talking about van life. Right. So this is this cute little thing I can kind of include. Sure. I think, drawing cars is fun for me because I draw them so poorly. So and they're coming from CCS,
right. It almost feels like it's like
all of the transportation kids that were so incredible at, drawing these very sleek cars. I'm I'm drawing a box with wheels. Right. This is a car.
Yeah. Did you happen to catch if anyone happened to catch the Detroit Style Show that was just up at the museum? There were, so many amazing, those paintings, and the drawings and the concept designs were all so great. And then I loved also mixing that with the Edruska and the Basquiat painting and things that were, depicting those
I was going to mention the Basquiat piece was what got me thinking about this is so interesting because I know it's a car. It's not a super representational piece of a car, but it's the idea of a car. And that was kind of that was another piece in the back of my brain that was I can draw anything. I don't have to, be super scared to draw horses and bikes and things that, seem really complicated. I can just kind of wing it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Another comment from Gail Watson, prior Thursdays at the Museum presenter herself, and an artist I've always found inspirational. She said, your presentation was quite inspirational. Thank you, Heather.
Oh, nice. Well, thanks for being here.
Here's a question. What do you think about kids growing up using iPads and computers to draw things? Is it a plus or minus in their artistic development? That's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, oh, I think that's such a good question. It is definitely something. I don't have kids personally, but it's something that I have thought about. I think that it is a great tool, but as a kid who didn't have technology like that, I would, I would just draw it. And it's something that you can do that doesn't require a screen. I don't think it has to be one or the other. I guess I do think, coming from like an art education background though, especially for like developing minds, I think that it's good for kids to have that tactile experience, and you know um even introducing them to that, so that so that they know that it's an option, and that they might enjoy it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I think I would say too a good balance. If you have access to iPads and computers and Photoshop and Procreate and these things, you can do really great stuff with. But it's still really important to have that foundational background, and like some of the things you were saying earlier about experimenting with tactile things. Not that you can't also experiment with on digital programs too, and that can be a whole other great way to try different things and try stuff out. But
Right. I think too, I mean, we're already like on our phones and screens all of the time. And drawing is definitely something that, it really helps. It's an activity that you can do that's like away from that.
For sure. Yes, definitely. All right. Any other questions? I'm checking the chat. Looks like we got most of them. But this was a really nice presentation, and yeah, I hope folks and this will live on YouTube. So if anyone missed an earlier part, I want to go back and check out any of those in particular slides or the demo or the materials that'll be available to you. Oh yeah, and here are links to Heather's website and that way. Heather's website and Instagram, which are both definitely worth checking out. And yeah, August 20th and 21st, if you're around and want to come by the museum studio, noon to 4, free drawing workshop. And we also, I will just say, we've resumed having workshops in the studio every Saturday and Sunday, whether there's a visiting artist or just our wonderful staff of working artists. So always a good chance to come by and make a project. And we're also doing drawing in the galleries every Friday night from 6 to 9, and a different gallery, 6 to 8:30, in a different gallery of the museum. So that's also a great chance to come by and, just spend some time drawing pencil to paper.
Fun.
Yeah.
I
So,
need to do that.
well, thank you so much, Heather, for joining us. This was a fun talk, fun catching up, fun seeing your work. Next week, we have a presentation on the theme of liberty, celebrating Independence Day and Bastille Day. So tune into that and see what works of art they talk about. Thank you all for joining. See you next time.
Thanks, everyone.